Hey everyone, today we're going to be working on a Toyota Land Cruiser and we're going to be replacing the diesel fuel filter on this particular vehicle. It's the same method used for the Hiluxes and most other vehicles that run the 1KZ-TE. That's the 3-litre diesel 4-cylinder turbo engine. So a quick rundown of what we'll need. We'll need some pliers to take off the clamps over here and over there. And then we need to take off these two 12mm nuts. And then there's a sensor wire underneath there. And then you just pull this out. You'll also need some diesel because we'll be pre-filling the new filter before putting it back in. Because if you keep pressing this top diaphragm here to pull diesel up from the tank, you can rupture them, especially if the vehicles are over 15 years old, which most of these Land Cruisers and Hiluxes are now that are fitted with these motors. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's always a good idea when you're working on fuel systems to always wear your safety glasses, and generally speaking you should always wear it whenever you're working on any vehicle. You'll need a container like so, or something similar, or even a cloth just to put on here, because you will get a little bit of diesel spilling out. So we'll start by taking this off. Doesn't hurt to wear gloves as well if you're working on diesel vehicles. Help you in the long run. If this is the first time you're doing this, you might have to spray this pipe down with a little bit of WD-40 because they can get seized onto the joints here. That's that one there. There's this one down here. What you can do is, before you take off the pipe, get some bolts as well, so when you take it off you can just block it off. Because remember, you want to prevent air from entering the fuel system, because then you'll have to bleed out the injectors and it just makes the job a little bit harder. So here's your water sensor underneath here. Okay, so now that we have this removed, we just have to remove that sensor connector there and we'll take it on the bench. I find it easiest opening the sensor at the bottom and the top housing on the vise. You can do it in the vehicle, but it's just a lot easier doing it on a bench. That's why I removed everything. So make sure you've got your new filter ready to go with the O-rings and everything. For reference, if you need the part number, it's just up there if you need that part number. So as you can see, it's just an open-ended filter, and we just need to unscrew the bottom and unscrew the top. So as you can see, this housing is basically seized onto the filter, so you might come into a similar problem like this. So I recommend having a vise, and we'll try a different method now to open this top. So what you can do is get a bit of WD-40 or similar and just spray it in there. Let that sit, and then we'll move on to the next step. So as you can see, those are the bolts, and this is the pry bar. Can you measure? That's good. Shut down this one. So now you can just unscrew it from there, and you can see it's basically it's rusted quite badly here, and that's what seized it on there. So it's a good thing that this fuel filter is being changed at the moment. So just for reference, that was the size of the bolts, and the width of the bolt is roughly about 8 mm is the width. So any standard bolt you could try, whatever you have, it's fine. So that's what we used. If you want a bit more accuracy, that's what,
6 or 7.
Yeah, roughly about that, just under the 8. So now we can go ahead and replace it. So we're going to be throwing out, basically chuck out the old filter with the O-rings and everything, and put in all the new stuff. Usually if the filters are not changed for quite some time, that's what happens. Or if you use your vehicle in a harsh environment, that's also what happens. If you notice any dirt or anything similar around this sensor, just give it a good clean. But this one looks pretty clean, as you can tell. Before screwing in and folding in the filter, just make sure you always check it first. Make sure it goes on there properly. I've had quite a few filters in the past where they've been incorrect. We'll go ahead. We'll use a little bit of the diesel and just lube up the O-ring. Always make sure you lube up all the O-rings. It'll just make it a lot easier than the next time you come to change it. Don't need to go super tight, but since we opened it with the vise, we'll tighten it here. So we'll just clamp it anywhere here. Just lightly clamp it. So I just topped up the fuel filter with diesel. As I mentioned earlier, make sure you have diesel so you can pre-fill these, because when you press this diaphragm to pull diesel from the tank, mainly because they're so old. They rupture the diaphragm. So this is a safer alternative. Then you want to take a little bit of diesel, lube up this O-ring, mount this filter back in the vise. And do the same this side as well. Just lube up this side as well, since we saw how jammed up it was. And it's just as tight as you normally do your oil filter. As tight as you can go by hand. It's usually more than enough. Tighten that, and you've tightened up your sensor at the bottom. Go back to the vehicle, put the pipes back on, connect the sensor, and then we'll crank it. So run your sensor wire underneath, like how it was. Now that we've pre-filled the filter, you can go ahead and give it a couple of pumps here, just lightly. Don't force it. When you feel it get hard, stop. Don't go any further than that. Don't force it. Before we tighten up the nuts fully, we'll just start it and just try it out. You want to check for leaks anywhere there at the bottom. So as you can see, everything is fine here. There's no leaks from the bottom, from any of the pipes there, the top here or the bottom there. So go ahead and tighten these nuts and you're good to go from there. So this video was a good example of how the filter gets stuck, and if you do run into that situation, how to actually open it. This one was really seasoned there, and if we had tried to remove it here in the vehicle, it would have been nearly impossible. So this was a good, useful video, and I'm glad I could show you that. So thanks for watching, everyone. Please like and subscribe.